Yeah, good morning. As we start the Tanya, as we start the chitas of the day, we're holding. Today is Wednesday. We're holding the fourth reading in the Parshas Ekev. We're holding in Deuteronomy chapter 10, verse number 1. Ve'esahi was a dot down. Omar Hashem Elai. God said to me, "Psalacha, carve out for yourself shnei luchos avonim, two tablets of stone, him as it was in the first ones, if the one that you broke, and come up again to the mountain to me, and make yourself a wooden ark. Rashi says that at the end of the 40 days, this was the end of the second 40 days, which was the first of Elul, you're coming up to. God was reconciled with me and said to me, carve out to yourself two tablets, and afterwards make yourself a wooden ark. I, however, you see in verse number 3, made the ark first because I considered that it would come with tablets in my hands. Where would I put them? This was not the ark that Bezalel made, because the Israelites did not occupy themselves with the Mishkan until after Yom Kippur, which was 40 days later. So this is the ark that Moshe Rabbeinu made was not the ark. First, the ark of Moshe Rabbeinu made was not. It was an ark of gold. I mean, the ark of Bezalel made for the Beis Hamikdash was gold. When Moshe had said in the mount, he commanded them regarding the construction of the Beis Hamikdash. Then Bezalel made the Mishkan first, and only afterwards the ark and the other furnishings. It follows, therefore, that this was another ark, and it was the one that went out with them to battle. But the one Bezalel made did not go out to battle except in the days of Eli, when they were punished for it. And it's the ark that was captured by the Philistines. Verse number 2. After and I wrote in the luchas the words, there was in the first luchas, which you broke, the Samte Ba'adam, you put him in the ark. Verse 3. So I made an ark of acacia wood, and I cut out two stones like were there before, and I went up to the mountain with the two tablets. So Moshe Rabbeinu cut out the stone, but the Eibushter God wrote on the stone. Like the first tablets, the 10 commandments, which God spoke to you, in the mountain, from the fire, he called the day of gathering, and God gave it to him. And then I came down the mountain. This was 40 days later on Yom Kippur. I took the luchas in the ark, which I made, and they were there, Hashem, as God has commanded. So verse number 6, and then the Jewish people, journeyed from Beis Hayakim, Meseda, Sham Meis Arim, Yikra Sham V'Yechayin Elazar B'nai Tachtam. Rashi says, wow, that's a jump. What is the relevance here? What is relevant here? We just got the Ten Commandments. Furthermore, did they really journey from the well of Bnei Yakin to Meseda? Was it not from Meseda that they came to the well of Bnei Yakin, as it says, and they journeyed from Meseda to Bnei Yakin? That's it says in the book of Numbers. Furthermore, why does it say, and Adam died? Did Adam die at Mount Hor? He died later. If we calculate it, we find 80 stations from Meseda to Mount Hor. However, the answer is that this is also part of the reproof. Moshe Rabbeinu is giving them Musar in a convoluted way. And in effect, Moshe said, this also you did. And Adam died at Mount Hor at the end of 40 years. And consequently, the divine clouds of the glory departed. You were afraid of impending war with the king of Arad. So you appointed a leader to return to Egypt and went back 8 stations until Bnei Yaakov. And from there to Messiah. There the sons of the Levites battled with you. They slew some of you and some of them until you were forced to return by the way you retreated. From there you returned to Gilgal, which is Hered HaGilgal. So this is part of the story of the desert. There was a time that there was a group of Jews that ran away, decided to turn to Mitzrayim, and the tribe of Levi. So they went back 8 stops, and the tribe of Levi brought them back. And here Moshe Rabbeinu mentions to them that story. That's what it says in the next verse 7. V'sham nasu Gidgodim. From there they traveled to Gidgodim and Gidgodim Tzvasa, and from Gidgodim they went to Tzvasa, Eretz Nachle Mayim, a land with streams of water. So at Masada you made a great mourning for the death of Aaron, which was the cause of this your retreat. It seems to you that through he died there. Moshe puts to reproof the break of the tablets to indicate, because Moshe Rabbeinu, the break of the tablets, what does the break of the tablets have to do with the death of Aaron? It was 40 years later, 38 years later. So Moshe Rabbeinu puts them together to indicate that the death of a righteous person is as the grieving of the Holy One, blessed be, in the day that his tablets are broken. And to inform you that when they said, let us appoint a leader and return to Egypt and divorce ourselves from him, for Moshe was as grievous for him as the day that they made the golden calf. So that's the interconnection between all these stories. So Moshe Rabbeinu puts it together as a challenge. Verse number 8. At that time, God separated the tribe of Levi. Lafis is Aaron, Hashem, that they carry the ark of God. Lamin Hashem, to serve before God. L'shar say to l'shar levada b'shmei, to serve him and to bless in his name until this day. So this is connected to the previous context. During the first year of your departure from Egypt, when you erred by making the calf, the sons of Levi did not err. God separated them from you. This verse is the connection to the retreat for Bnei Yaakov to tell us that this matter, the sons of Levi did not err, but remained steadfast in their faith. Lost its audience. So that's when God changed from the firstborns to the tribe of Levi after the golden calf. Lost its audience, Alavim, to carry, referring to the Levites. This is a Kehanim, and this is the concept of the raising of the hand, the Siyas Kapayim, where the Kehanim bless the Jewish people to uplift their hands. Verse number 9. Therefore, the tribe of Levi does not have a portion in his brothers. God is his inheritance. As God has spoken to him. Since they were separated for the service of the altar, they therefore were not free to plow and sow. They didn't need land. It was not their forte. It was not their obligation. And therefore, the tribe of Levi were totally involved in the Beis Hamikdash. They needed to be pure. They needed to be tar. They needed to be not involved in worldly issues. Hashem and Achlasei, the Levi receives his daily fare, designated for him from the king's house. When the gifts due to the Kohanim, granted by them by God, they have to get Maisa, Truma Maisa, with the Jewish people. Would have to give them because they had no land. They didn't work the land. They had no business, so to say. Verse number 10. I remained in the mountain the first 40 days. Moshe Rabbeinu goes back to the story, the beginning of this reading. I went back by Ishmael and God did not destroy you. Rashi says, I remained in the mountain to receive the latter tablets from the Chodesh El until Yud Tisha. Moshe does not say above how long he remained in the mountain at the last ascent. He again begins with it. Like the beginning days, like the first tablets. Thus, that those days were with God's goodwill the first 40 days. So too, the last 40 days were doing goodwill. But the middle 40 days, as we mentioned, there were 3 times that Moshe Rabbeinu went up the mountain for 40 days. 40 days to get the first tablets, the 40 days to have God's forgiveness, and the 40 days to get the second tablets. So those were the 40 days, 40 and 40 and 40. The first was good, this last was good. The middle was a very sticky time. Verse 11. So God said to me, arise and go lead the travels before the people. And let them come, to them come and inherit the land. Which I promised to your fathers, to give to them. So though you and Israel turned away following him, and you erred with the golden calf, nevertheless, God forgave us and told me to go and let's lead the people to Eretz Yisrael. And that completes the Chumash. We go now to the Tanya of the day. The Tanya of the day is a new letter of the Alter Rebbe, the 6th letter of the Alter Rebbe, the Geras HaKodesh. 6th letter. So the Alter Rebbe starts off with a verse. It says in Proverbs, in Mishlei, it says, Zeirei tzedakah, he who sows charity, Seicher emes, has a reward of truth. So the Alter Rebbe is going to talk about the word Seicher. Seicher. What's the meaning of the word Seicher? Over here, he translates as a reward. So the Alter Rebbe, Perush, Schar. You change the word Schar. That's how you really Seicher is written one way. That's why there's a couple interpretations to the word Seicher. Seicher, Schar is the tzedakah. This means that the attribute of truth is a God-given reward for sowing the concept of truth, of tzedakah. The reward for sowing charity is the attribute of truth. So you see an explanation says this means in general generally used to forestall an alternative interpretation, pirush, because there's many interpretations to the word seichar. Here too, by the terms the Alter Rebbe stresses that we are to understand the Hebrew word for seichar to mean schar, reward, rather than it being understood also can mean closing off or restraining. The latter interpretation is of Rashi is the word yiskaru, and the well springs of deep was sealed. Or furthermore, even the Targum and other commentaries who read the word seicha to mean payment of a reward can be understood to mean that the individual who sows charity receives a true reward, meaning an everlasting reward, rather than a reward that consists of truth. So there's many ways to use the word seichar. It's written in an interesting way. And as you see the 3 ways, Rashi learns it as a closing off, the Targum learns it as a payment of a reward, and the Alter Rebbe says it is a reward of the attribute of truth. It's a reward. The Alter Rebbe therefore specifically says this means that the reward granted from the sowing of tzedakah is an attribute of truth. Uksiv, and it's written in another verse, says, Titin emes leYaakov. You give truth unto Jacob. So you have 2 ways. It's a reward for charity, or it was given the attribute of truth, which would indicate once again that the attribute is granted from above. So according to the commentators, Rashi and Targum, this verse is not ascribed to the state of affairs. Rather, it's petition that God give truth to Jacob, that he fulfills for Jacob's children the faithful promise that he had made to Jacob. Hence, the verse does not prove the attribute of truth was a gift granted from above. The Alter Rebbe therefore goes on to specify that this verse is to be understood in the same light as the verse quoted at the outset of this letter. And here the prophet Micha speaks of the praises of the Holy One, blessed be He, as is written in Isaiah. Meaning, rather than the petition God, this verse extols Him for fulfilling His promise, granting the attribute of truth to Jacob. What is the meaning? The Alter Rebbe says, Pirush. It means that the Holy One, blessed be He, who gives the attribute of truth unto Jacob. So this was given milamaila. So we have to understand, is there not truth in Jacob? God forbid, there's no truth in the Jewish people. In Jacob, unless God gives him truth. So that is the meaning of Micha, that there's no truth from above, but that because God gives it. So what is the meaning of the verse? That God will give the truth. The Alter Rebbe explains, very well known, that the attribute of Yaakov in Midas HaRachmanis is the attribute of compassion. Avraham Avinu is the concept of chesed, kindness. Isaac is Gevurah, the attribute of severity. Yaakov is Tiferes, beauty or rachamim, compassion. The inward aspect of the soul's divine service, when motivated by chesed, is love of God. The inner aspect of the soul's divine service, when motivated by gevurah, is the awe of God. So too, divine service, when motivated by compassion, has an instinct inward aspect. What is the avodah of Rachmanis? Avodas Hashem b'midas Rachmanis, service of God through compassion. Yabba Mercedes Rachmim Rabim derives from the arousal of man in man's heart of profound compassion. For the divine spark of God within the soul, which is in distance from the light of God consciousness. When man goes about in darkness, in the vanities of the world. So when a man finds himself straying, forlorn in a state of spiritual darkness, he can thus awaken within him feeling compassion for the soul's spark within him that he himself has banished the light of the divine service. So a human being once in a while should have Rachmanis, compassion upon his soul, that his soul is totally in the dark, and he has banished him. He brought him to the dark. So this Rachmanis, this arousal of compassion. Where did this compassion come from? That comes from when man understands the deep and understanding in the greatness of God. Person thinks for a second how God is great. Indicates that even the upper, greater spiritual worlds, nothing is important to God. Everything is nothing. Whether it's a physical thing, whether it's the most spiritual concept, it's all nothing. Ki kol shefam v'chayusav, because all of their bounty and vitality is derived from a mere ray and radiance of God, a single letter of God's name. Right? We said the whole upper worlds were created with the letter Yud. The whole lower worlds were created with the letter Hey. So can you imagine all the worlds, all this whole physical world is all come from one letter, a ray of one letter of God's name. All the upper spirituals all come from one letter, a ray of one letter. As it says with the letter Yud, the whole spiritual world to come was created. So for one letter, this whole spiritual world was created. The spiritual worlds are all which include the eternal world to come, were thus all created by the means of a single letter Yud in divine name. And not only by the letter Yud, but the ray, it's the light that comes from the letter of Yud. So the light that comes from the letter Yud created all the Gan Edens, all the paradises, all the heavens, all the malachim, all come from a ray, from the letter Yud of God's. And now in this ray and radiance, which is an extension of the life-giving force energy that flows from God's blessed name, the letter Yud. The letter Yud is the upper worlds, and the letter Hey is the lower worlds. This is the distinction, the difference between the higher world and the lower world. What's the difference? The letter Yud and the letter Hey. That's all different, really. They all come from God's name. The letter Yud is the upper worlds. The letter Hey is the lower worlds. So I explained in its previous letter, this lowly corporal world received its vitality only from the matter or the body of the letter of the spiritual speech, which in turn derived it from the letter Hey, a divine name. Right? So the letter Hey comes ultimately, we mentioned yet in last week's letter, the last letter, I mean, that the letter Yud, which is Atzilus, comes into the lower Hey, and then it comes into the ultimate lower Hey, into this world of action, into Malchus, which comes into speech. So in the name of God, it didn't come to speech yet. So the higher world, however, received the vitality from a form or soul from these letters, and this derives from the level of Chachma, represented in the Yud, the divine name. However, these differences, modes in which a life or giving force divine names diffused from the upper to the lower worlds, respectively, relate only to the ray and the radiance of divine name, not to relate to God's essence. So the way it's all even in God's name, it's only the letter Yud and the letter Hey. But the God's no difference, letter Yud or Hey, or it's only God's name. So all this is irrelevant to the essence of God. Moreover, any name is a mere radiance of the essence empty of a name. A person's name, for example, is not his essence. It's merely a means of relating to another person. So my name is Zalman, your name is Sarah. Is the same way, the divine name is merely a radiance of the essence of the divine. We give God a name. We can't even give God a name. Until now, the Rebbe has spoken in general terms of the difference between the higher and the lower worlds. It's also all the varieties of details within each world. Is all determined by the different combination of letters. We mentioned this in Tanya, through which they were created. Everything was created through words. 10 utterances. Words that are written openly, words that are written through combinations, words that are written through gematria. Everything comes through the word of God. Whether it's clear in an open way, whether it's through a combination of letters, whether it's through gematria, as we mentioned before. So it's a distinction between the temporal dimension. Past, present, and future is all creation. And all the variety of events throughout the changing times. All of this, time, space, matter, past, present, future, is all determined by difference of the combination of letters. All these combination of letters are the conduits of the life, living, giving force that proceed from the attribute of God, blessed be name. As we learned in Likutei Amarim, chapter 2, verse, part 2, chapter 11. So all the above mentioned differences are found only in the flow of vitality that emanates from God's attributes, in which they descend through the letters of His created speech. This is all in words. This is all in God's speech, in God's letters, ultimately in God's letters of His name, Yud K, Yud Hey, Vav Hey. But when you go to the essence of God, where God's above a name, that's where it says, I, God, do not change. There's no difference to me. The letter Yud, the letter Hey, the letter Vav, the letter Hey. There's no difference. I'm above and beyond letters. I'm above and beyond names. I'm above and beyond any combination of things. To me, it's all nothing. Neither term changes in progression from the uppermost level to the nethermost. God, there's no above and below. There's no upper and lower. There's not a concept something's greater or smaller. But that would mean that the difference in God Himself. And in God Himself, there's no difference. So the name of God, as we said, we learned, you have the letter Yud, small. You have the letter Hey, which is big. So that's why Yud is Chachma. And Hey is Bina. Because one is small and one is big. But to God, and that's in God's name. But to God Himself, there's no big or small. There's no Yud, there's no Hey. There's no difference between a Yud and a Hey. They're all the same. Because thus like God is above, He's like that below. You can't say God is greater above than He is in this world. God is equally in this world as He's in the upper worlds. So that is where you have to be able to differentiate between the way we understand God and the way God is. That's why it says the difference. We understand God through His attributes, through His names. That's the way we understand God, because we are limited. And therefore, we only can understand what is limited. To God, there's no limitation. So therefore, to God, there's no difference between the upper worlds and the lower worlds. To us, there is a difference, the way we look at things. To God, there's no difference. That's where the struggle comes between God and the physical world, God and a human being, that we struggle with this, that we should be able, as human beings, to be able to understand the unlimited a little bit, to the best of our capacity. Because your situation is Bible, how do we understand the unlimited? Is by understanding this concept. The more we understand this concept, that there's a concept the way God comes within the world, where God it comes into His name, and that name ultimately comes into letters, into words, and ultimately into the world. And to understand that God is above that. Or in the concept of the terms of temporal changes is any different to God. By God, there's no past, present, and future. It's very hard for a human being to comprehend that. That there's no past, present, and future. There's no time by God. So there's a time by us, but there's no by God. There's no concept of time. For just as God was alone before the creation of the world, so He's alone after creation. That's what we say. God is not affected by the world. He's alone before creation. He's alone after creation, because there's no concept of that the world can that has any effect, that a finite thing can have an effect on an infinite thing. So this is because everything is absolutely as nothing. The God relation to his being and his essence. So the God's essence, no past, present, and future. There's no upper and lower. There's no difference between man and animals. There's no difference in man and God and angels. There's no difference in anything. Everything is the same, and everything is nothing. There's a single letter in man's speech. Even one thought in comparison to the whole soul. So the Alter Rebbe gave this example many times in Tanya. But we can all understand that one letter that we say, one word that we say, is nothing to the concept of our speech. It's nothing. One word, because we can speak unlimited. So one word, one thing that we can say, as long as we live, we can speak. There's not a limit to our wording. So that one word is unlimited. I mean, that one word is so limited to our unlimited speech. Or that one word is so unlimited to our thought. And that thought is so unlimited to our essence of our soul that our thought comes from. So that's the analogy, the best analogy that we can come to, because ultimately our speech is limited. When we die, we can't speak anymore. So therefore, there is a limitation to speech. It's unlimited as long as we live. But once we die, we can't speak anymore. So there is a limitation. That's why it's only a analogy that maybe we can comprehend the aspect of understanding the way God is above everything. That even though we talk about God's name and we explain God's name, but that's only the way we understand God, through His name. God has got a name. For example, the same thing. I have a name, not for myself. I have a name for somebody else. I don't need a name for myself. I know who I am myself. I don't need to call myself Zalman. I need my name, so you should know I'm Zalman bukiet. Problem is, there's a couple Zalman bukiets there already. So now we have to go even further. Zalman bukiet lives in Florida. So that's how we can differentiate in the aspect of our name. So our name tells us for you, for another person to know who I am. So meaning this is true not only for the letter of speech, but also thought. Even though a soul garment of thought is mere abstract, the subtle to the speech, and thus closer to the soul. So you might think the soul's thought is the thought of a human being is like a soul. It's no comparison to that either. It is the intellect, the rational soul, that causes the emergence of the emotions. This, in turn, leads to the thought of speech. Thus, in comparison to the essence of the soul itself, which transcends even intellectual by far, one letter of speech or even one thought is absolutely no consequence. However, the above knowledge is merely offered. The Marshall, I'm only giving you a metaphorical speaking to appease the ear, the Alter Rebbe says. It's not even a good analogy. My analogy, the Alter Rebbe says, is only an analogy to that you should affect your hearing. But it's really not a good analogy, because you kind of compare a human being to God. So here I'm comparing a human being to God, which is really unfair. So if you can understand your own self, that one word and one third is nothing to myself, It's not even an analogy to God, so therefore it's just that you should understand it. To God, it's even much further. Because I said, even though I think that my soul is unlimited, my soul is ultimately limited. It was created. So my soul also ultimately has a limit because my soul was created once. And before it was created, it was not in existence. So it was created. Even if it was created before it was created before the creation of the world, maybe according to some, my soul is already 5,780 years, 81 years old. But still, it's 5,781 years. So it's still not an unlimited concept. And therefore, it says there's no comparison to you. As much as we want to give a comparison, the Alter Rebbe says, I want to give you a comparison of a human being. To God, there's no comparison. As the discussion goes, the shakin it's oila, it's oizen, to appease the ear. So I'm just giving you something to appease you. You want to hear something. Everybody wants to understand something. Everybody wants to have some kind of a comprehension. I give you something. Is it the real thing? No. Because there's no comparison between a human being and God. So therefore, I'm just giving you something you can comprehend in your little world. Because you have some unlimited thing in your little world also. A human being does have unlimited. His soul to his body is unlimited. His speech to the soul is unlimited, so to say, but still a limitation. So, but it's some aspect of our limitation. So unlike the single letter of thought or speech that bears some degree of comparison to the soul, albeit an infinite one, the creation stands in no proportion whatsoever to the Creator. So there's really no comparison. It's an analogy that has really no comparison between what I'm trying to tell you. So the analogy is so far from what's being compared to, which as explained elsewhere. And look at the Amorim, chapter 2, part 2, verse number, chapter 9. And this is what we say in our prayers. The king who is exalted alone. This means just like as aforetime, before the creation, before creation. God was alone, apart from him, nothing exists. That means alone. Alone, that means nothing exists. So too, nothing exists to him. He's exalted. He's elevated beyond the days of the world. Nothing exists. Past, present, future, the same moment, nothing exists. The Abish is exalted and elevated, transcends dimension of time, which is known in the days of the world. Because the life force of all the days of the world is only derived from the spiritual level of the king, from the spirit, which is the spirit of Malchus. So the whole concept of the world comes from Malchus. God is far beyond that. It's nothing Malchus to God. Because has explained elsewhere. So can you imagine God, who's Meruman, everything is nothing, and I am struggling with him. I am taking the part of God that's in me and I'm pushing it aside. That should awaken up an unbelievable. So since God utterly transcends creation, which is absolutely no consequence in relation to his essence, follows that there is extremely a great cause to feel compassion on the spark, which is a part of God above, Hashechein beguf, which dwells in a dark, in a gloomy body, Mishcha de Chavir, which the Zohar calls it the hide of a snake. All that this dark and lowly body is able to become chame, be able to become impure by indulging in prohibited things, derived from the three levels of utterly impure klippus. And we be able to become defiled by various lusts. Mercy, when God have mercy on us, involving things which, though permitted, derive from klippus. Can you imagine? This soul, which is the essence of part of God, comes into a human being that has the capability of doing everything that is negative. And even in positive things, he has the capability of taking the positive things and making it impure. So lule shakadosh baruch hu if not for God serving the man as a shield, not that God had rahmanas on us. And gives him the strength and the might to wage a war with the body and its passion and to trumpet over them. So even when the body does not actually lust after physical pleasure, the very fact that it's inclined points to lowly state, and it's within such the body the divine spark is obligated to spend its days. Not for God, we've been lost. This is the meaning in our prayer. We say, Master of our strength, shield of our salvation. So after exalting God as the King, who is exalted alone from aforetime, and beseeching him in his abundant mercy to have compassion on us, lowly people, we continue with the above quoted phrase. With these words, we affirm that God provides us with an encompassing light and power far transcending man's puny powers that enable us to trumpet over body and his passion. If God would not help us, we would not have the strength alone to overcome it. We need the Abish's help so that God should help us overcome our physical passions, whether good, shalom, if they're bad. Well, in the middle, we're left in the middle of the thing. You'll have to all come tomorrow because this is the ending of this Tanya of the day. You'll have to all come tomorrow to see the continuation what the Alter Rebbe wants to bring out with this to us in Titan Emes Yaakov, that God is the one who gives the truth to Yaakov, to Jacob, to the Jewish nation. We'll soon see. The Alter Rebbe explains this. It's really fascinating. But this completes the Tanya of the day. And the Tillim of the day today is the 19th of the day, 19th day of the month. It's chapter 90 till 96. So 90 to 96, you do the Tillim of the day. I wish you all a beautiful, happy, wonderful, healthy day. God bless you all. And I'll see you in Mitchell tomorrow at 8 o'clock. And also at 10 o'clock, we have a class on the portion of the week. I wish you all a great, beautiful day.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Rabbi, a real cliffhanger now. We have to come back tomorrow.
God bless.
God bless.
Bye. Thank you all.
Bye.